Perfect. And we'll just get to it. So first of all, I'm going to actually share my screen. Perfect. Can everyone see my screen okay? Wonderful, wonderful. Perfect. Awesome. And so we're just going to start at the beginning. Hello and welcome, everyone. We're going to do a few introductions on our end from the subsidy and Best Starts for Kids side. We're not going to do introductions for everyone simply because there's over 20 people here, but I do want to give a warm welcome to everyone who decided to be here. These slides, as well as all the information and the recording, will be made available to everyone that registered. So if you have folks who've missed it, or you have folks who have questions, you'll be able to go through the slides and presentation material afterwards. Then you can always reach out to us for questions, comments, concerns, or any particular needs you may have. And with that, I'd love to introduce myself. My name is David Coven. I'm the Executive Director of Scholar Funds. My pronouns are he, him. And a part of this program, we lead the subsidy administration side. And so we do a lot of the work around some of the technology, some of the implementation pieces, some of the operations, and making sure that the pieces come together fully and completely through the website, the eligibility forms, the next steps to get people enrolled, and everything in between. And I will pass it to Adam for his introduction.
Hi, my name is Adam Burton, he, him pronouns. I co-manage this administrative BSK subsidy with David, or the Scholar Fund side of things. We're kind of like a Burton Ernie team. We go back and forth and push each other and think about things differently, but together we try and make sure we don't miss any loose ends. And I'm going to pass it to Katie Kaiser.
Hello, everyone. My name is Katie Kaiser, she, her, and I am the Best Starts for Kids Child Care Program Manager at King County. And so have been working with community members for the last year to design the request for proposal that identified Scholar Fund as our subsidy administrator. I think we may also be joined by several of our other community partners who will be working specifically supporting families accessing the subsidy. We have Child Care Resources, White Center Community Development Association, Voices of Tomorrow, and A for Apple Learning Center. So thank you all for being here. We're excited that you're going to help us get the word out about this amazing new resource in our community.
Thank you so much, Katie. And yeah, with that, we'll just dive into the presentation. As we go through, just giving a high-level overview of what you'll come to expect during this presentation, we do want to make sure that we start off answering any questions. We know everyone is here to learn more about the program, and so we want to start off with questions and answers. Then we'll do an overview of the program itself, the website, where you can find information, where you can get outreach materials to share, or guided instructions on how to navigate the process, as well as how to get customer support and make sure you get application assistance, or anyone that you may be serving can get the assistance they need when they need it. We'll be going through the actual form in a little bit of detail, so you have additional context of how to answer the questions, how to support community members, and get a better context of why we're asking the things that we're asking. And then we'll close out with questions and answers to make sure that we're reaching everyone's needs as we go through the presentation. And so again, just starting at the very beginning, also prefacing that at any point, please feel free to add your questions in the chat, and someone from our team will be able to navigate and go through them. But we just want to open this space up for questions and answers from community members before we dive into the program overview, website, and the actual eligibility form. And for this section, definitely please feel free to unmute yourself or just add questions to the chat. And we'll give it a few more minutes just so everyone has space to answer or ask anything they need.
And thank you to those who have been sharing their contact information in the chat. If you're like me and you get a little bit nervous when you're asked to speak in front of people, even in a digital space, sometimes that happens, and maybe more so when you can't see people in a room, you feel free to type any questions in the chat right now as well. And again, there are no stupid questions. We're here to clarify any information. And so if you have any questions at all, you can type them in the chat. And if we don't see any questions in the chat in the next 30 seconds, we're just going to start going over things, because I know some people like to listen for information and listen for their question to be answered without having to ask that question.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So with that, we will dive into the first part of the agenda. And so Adam and myself will be going over a little bit of the website that contains all of the information and materials that detail who the program is for, how do individuals apply, the eligibility elements, how to get support, and then how to spread the word with outreach materials available across a multitude of languages. Again, and you'll hear this pretty often during the forum or during the presentation and walkthrough. Please, at any time, feel free to add questions to the chat so that we can make sure we address them as we're going through walkthroughs. And also, if there are elements you want us to focus on or highlight as we go through any parts of this process. And with that, we will start the website overview. Adam, do you want to go through this, or would you like me to?
I'm happy to go through this. I want to preface by saying many people have put a lot of time and energy and thought into this, and that does not mean that it's perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And the thing that we really want to walk away from every info session with is any feedback we can get that might provide guidance on how to improve things. So selfishly, if you have any feedback, we want it. So that's our selfish ask, that if you have any information that you think might help us better serve folks applying for childcare or for childcare subsidy, just let us know in the chat or through a private email or anything. Please let us know. And so first off, there's about $2 million a month for subsidies, and it'll go it'll start in November and it'll go through the next 5 years following. It was a 6-year subsidy or a 6-year levy, but the first year is passing. So we're in the first year of it, and it'll go through, what is the exact year? The math is, we count.
2027.
2027. And so through 2027, there will be funding. To get to Amy's question in there, looking at eligibility, duration, and all the good things. If we talk about duration, families will be certified for different amounts depending on stability to some extent. And so the certification process will last different for different families depending on their economic circumstances and such. The overview of it is essentially typed out here, that we're trying to impact all of the children raised in King County that might need support. It says 20 million per year, which comes out to a little less than 2 million per month with some wiggle room. The languages up here, we started with Spanish and Somali, and we're going to add languages as we get them translated. We have Mark, we have Chinese, we have Russian, we have a whole bunch of different languages that are going to show up there. So as we move through here, there are different things to click on. If you click on the Start Eligibility form here, it will scroll you down. Before we get there, though, we're going to talk about who is eligible. There are 5 main criteria for eligibility. You have to live in King County, and sometimes the borders can get a little bit dicey, so to say. It's not always completely clear, so we provided a map for people to look at. And if you're in question, if anybody's in question about whether they live in King County or not, you can see if you have a representative for your zip code. You can also just fill out the form And if anybody's any questions, we want the eligibility form to address those needs. You have to fall below the income cap. And so your household size, the table to the right, will indicate where you are at with the income cap. If you are not sure where your exact what your exact pre-tax monthly household income is, you should just fill it out. We're going to verify it later on. You're not one of the biggest, probably as we think about this, we're all thinking about people we would refer. And so that one of the biggest sticking points is going to be, are people eligible for working connections? And so in our eligibility form, we have questions that help indicate to us whether we think folks would be eligible for working connections. And anybody who is eligible for working connections will be turned towards working connections and have to show ineligibility before they would be eligible for the BSK subsidy. You have to need childcare, which is, that's why we're here. And then you have to choose a licensed child care provider in Washington. And one of the hopes we have is to move towards family and neighbors care in the future. It's not there yet, but that's an aspirational goal of the program. David, can you scroll down, please? We've included a spot here where if you click on the website, it'll take you back to the top. If you click on any of those language boxes at the top, it will translate the entire website into that language, including the intro or the eligibility form. The timeline, we tried to make the timeline clear just for this first launch. We think about this as phase 1 of the program. We're not ongoing yet. We're trying to launch it. And so this is the launch timeline. The eligibility form will be open for the next 4 to 6 weeks as we look over and we see how many people apply or fill out the eligibility form. And we contemplate that we'll have a wait list. One of the reasons we contemplate having a wait list is there isn't an activities requirement. And so anybody who meets those criteria up top is eligible, regardless of their activities, provided that they aren't also eligible for working connections. And so the lack of an eligibility requirement is something that is new to child care subsidies. And we think that the goal of the lack of the activities requirement is to kind of fill the gaps in what is missed by working connections. So we're trying to address the gaps that exist there and provide childcare to folks who haven't had access to it in the past. And so if you click on that start eligibility form, and David, you don't have to do it now because we're going to scroll all the way down. It would take you to the interest or to the eligibility form directly. Near the end of September, those who are selected to apply will receive an invitation to fill out a full application, at which point they'll have to provide documentation depending on their circumstances. And then beyond that, we will look over all the documentation and folks will enroll their child care provider and they'll begin child care at the earliest November 1st. So that's our hope, is to get as many families onboarded and ready to go by November 1st. That's not to say that the timeline can't be extended for folks as needed. And so one thing we have set up is a family access and support team. David, can you scroll down, please? So how do I get support? You can access the family access and support team through text, email, or phone call at any time. Our lines are open. We have multiple different partnerships. So it's not just one group. It's not just Scholar Fund that's doing this. There are multiple places, points of contact in different communities across King County. And so David, if he clicked on text us, it would bring up a text box. If he clicks on email us, you can directly call. So on phones, this would work immediately. Folks can email or text, and they can receive a response fairly quickly. David, can you scroll down? The frequently asked questions might look anemic or not complete. To some extent, that's intentional. We want to focus all of our questions on the eligibility form right now. And as relevant information pertains to the application or to enrollment, we will update that. But we don't want to overload folks with too much information right now. And one of the things we were hoping with the eligibility form was to help manage folks' times in a way that so it didn't bolster too much hope. We want to get a sense of who would be eligible and how many people we have before we provide just an onslaught of information. And so this is a place where we have the things we've thought about. But if you have questions or questions that show up in the chat that seem relevant or things that you think families are asking, please let us know. If you have an answer and you're just answering it over and over again, we absolutely want to update the website so that the information is there. So please allow us the information that's needed to update, because your points of contact sometimes that we don't have. Can you scroll down, please, David? These are the family access and support team partners right here. If you're interested in any outreach materials or toolkits, we included a place where you could enter in your email address and you will receive a link to download the toolkit. We have the 3 languages right now, and soon to have 8 to 10 languages there. So the toolkit will be accessible in different languages, so you can provide it to different communities. And then scroll down, David. The links down here will take you to the top. One thing we wanted to think about was, how do families know that this is legitimate, that it's not just somebody who's putting the stuff here? So something we did here, if folks are worried about fraud or the connection to this being genuine, it says visit Best Starts in the right with the link. If you were to click on that link where it says visit Best Starts, it will take you to the BSK County website. And so the goal here is that we're trying to show that there is an actual affiliation. It's not the strongest thing. If you think of a better way to show that, or if you have families that are concerned, please let us know, because we're trying to do everything we can to increase the amount of trust in the program. Is there anything I missed, David or Katie, that you would like to add?
Nope, just re-echoing Adam's sentiments that this whole program is built and adaptable for community members. And so at any point in time, we dumped our emails in the chat. Please feel free to reach out and think if you have thoughts or updates or processes that make the process or program more inclusive, that help adapt to your needs as you're working with families, as you're navigating cases, and as you're doing referrals, or that help better steward your ability to help families navigate the process.
And I think the last thing I'll say before David walks through the eligibility form is that we're intentionally designing this as an adaptable program as we gather information. We want it to be a low barrier program so we can serve as many folks as possible. I like the questions like immigration or unemployment status won't matter. It won't matter. As long as folks aren't eligible for working connections and they meet the county residence and eligibility thresholds, then they'll be eligible for us. But the goal is, we're thinking through every step of the program on how we might unintentionally filter people out that deserve and should receive access to the subsidy. And so if at any point there's anybody that you know of that's applying for the subsidy in the future and they haven't had an experience that they feel is humanizing, or they've been filtered out and you know that they're deserving, then we want to be able to adjust the protocols. So again, I've said it a few times, but we're soliciting any feedback or any information that allow us to improve the program. And David, now you can click on the eligibility form and start walking us through it.
Can I add just one thing? So this is a new program, and we have created a set of eligibility criteria that are broader, as Adam said, than most other child care subsidies that have existed in King County. And so one thing that we are not sure of right now is how many eligible families will indicate an interest in the subsidy. And so that was a big rationale for starting with an eligibility form that can be filled out in 5 minutes. Is we really want to know, are we going to have significantly more interest in this subsidy than we have capacity to serve? And if that's the case, we don't want to ask families to fill out an application that takes them an hour with all of their income and their residency verification if we may not be able to serve them right away. And so I just want to reiterate that filling out an eligibility form will not guarantee that a family gets child care subsidy. It will guarantee that if they are eligible, they will be in the subsidy recipient pool. And we anticipate that there will be movement if we're not able to serve everyone right off the bat. And so I just want to, just as you work with families, to manage some expectations about what will happen if they fill out the eligibility form. They would be notified by the end of September if they were invited to complete the full application and proceed towards enrollment in the subsidy.
Thank you, Katie. And the only other thing that I will add as we get into the eligibility form is that you'll see peppered through the website and through all the materials, emails and elements for reaching out to support. And so this isn't just for applicants. If at any point in time, because we know there's a lot of density in the information we're going through, there's a lot of great questions that are now coming in through the chat. At any point in time, feel free to reach out to our support team via text, phone call, or email with any of your questions, and we'll make sure that you get the support you need to help navigate for your org, your entity, or any applicants that you're working with. And so with that, we will go through the eligibility form. As Adam mentioned at the beginning, the form and website are available in multiple languages. And so as you click through, you'll also be guided to an eligibility form available in the respective language. Really echoing what Katie said, the design and goal of this form is to be quick. It's to be low barrier. It's to really get the core pertinent information that helps us understand and assess prioritization, eligibility, interest, who we're serving, and what other areas we can improve and adapt the program, and get a real fine sense of what childcare needs are present for individuals who are applying and discussing their interest in this particular program. And so as we go through, our whole real goal is to give and set expectations. We have no clue how many people will apply, but we do know there's never enough money for the funding and support that needs to be invested for programs that center people. And so at the very beginning, we have a few reminders that just kind of outline what this step of the process is relative and in context to the other steps. And so this is the first step of the application process. And we want to outline for everyone who navigates this form, again, that this does not guarantee acceptance or subsidy after completion, but that we'll continue to do our best in terms of communicating, updating, and giving folks the information on where they are in the process. And so we start with a few reminders and a few acknowledges, which is what the program is, what the eligibility form is, an acknowledgement of the next steps of the parts of the program. As we go through, these are individual selections that individuals can make. Most of these questions are required. And so if you don't end up filling them out, you will have to go back. It will give you an error to say, hey, come back and fill this through. My goal for this part of the presentation and in this next 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, is really to give context to each of the questions and fill this out as if I'm a real family or I'm helping an individual family like my mother go through this application. And so going through, I'm just going to put my mother's information so that we can look at what does it look like to fill out this eligibility form on behalf or as we're navigating and assisting an individual family. So my last name is Coven, my mother's last name is Coven. We can put in our phone number, and this is how we allow the first part of the notifications to go through. I'm not going to put in my real phone number, but this phone number is one where individuals will get text messages about the program unless they decide to opt out. And so we'll request information. We often know that circumstances change, situations change, and so we do ask for a backup phone number. However, this is completely optional. They can skip this, leave this blank, or put in the same phone number. We do recognize that not all phone numbers can receive text messages, so we do allow individuals to opt out. However, this will explicitly mean that individuals will not receive text message communications from our team because they've opted out unless they reach out to reverse this decision for their particular needs. Again, for all the different emails and whatnot, we do want to make sure that communications are as consistent and delivered to as many outlets as possible. And so we ask for emails so we can keep in touch with individuals throughout the duration of the program and through the next stage of the process. Similar to the phone number, we'll ask for backup information just so we can make sure to understand whether or not individuals need additional communications through other outlets. Now we're moving into the core content of the form that looks at really not only what does it take to be eligible, like the King County residency piece, but all the other additional context so we can make strong referrals or have better understanding of who we're supporting, who we're missing, and what other programs we may have overlap with that can better support families. And so as we're going through, we're asking individual families whether or not they're experiencing homelessness. If you select yes, we're only going to be asking for your zip code, again, to do this nexus. And if selected through this process, we will ask for additional documentation, verification, information about this process. If an individual is not experiencing homelessness, they'll select no, in which case they'll be able to provide their full street address. And so as you go through, you're able to provide any information you have. If selected through the process, we will be asking for additional documentation and information to help certify this nexus, this connection to King County. As we go through.
David, do you
oh,
mind zooming in a little bit on the form?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
How's that? Perfect, perfect, perfect. Thank you. And of course, just like Katie did, if you have any feedback or any needs as we go through this presentation, if I'm going too fast, please feel free to add in the chat or unmute yourself so that I can adapt to your needs. That's the whole goal of this entire part of the process. You will see some of these demographic questions. This allows us to better understand who we're serving and how we can better incorporate the net of access that we're starting to build. And so we ask about the race and ethnicities of the individuals in the household. These are multiple select, and you'll see in any multiple select instance, you can select all that apply. Because we're looking at the household unit, we're looking at the different adults that are in the household. And so this question is about the individual that's applying on behalf of the family, the primary point of contact, the primary adult. This is where we start to ask about the activities and more of the circumstances that the individual adults may be going through. And so you can select all that apply that fit your particular circumstance or the family circumstance that you're working through. Whether you're working full-time, evenings, enrolled in language, have SSI, or not working for a job. We did see a question about unemployment. And so here's where you'll be able to start asking and identifying circumstances that the family may be going through. We then go through and we're asking whether or not the individual was born in the United States. And again, this is questions that allow us to better understand who we're serving, who is eligible in the population, and what families are accessing the different programs. A lot of these questions that are more demographic based, there will always be an answer on prefer not to apply. And so if someone is feeling uncomfortable about this particular question, they can always select prefer not to apply. One of the things I do want to stress about this program, and probably my favorite thing about being a part of Scholar Fund, is our attention to data security and privacy. And so we've done close to about $200 million in programs over the last few years, hundreds of thousands of applicants, and our core cutting guiding lens has been one, how do we make the process as human as possible? And two, how do we protect individuals' information? And so as you're going through and navigating these parts of the process, I want to assure everyone on the data privacy and protection standards that we have to make sure all the answers are confidential, all the information is kept in secure mechanisms so families can feel trusting when they're going through and putting in their sensitive information. As we go through, we're now starting to describe the household unit as a whole. For this particular program, we're looking at adults in context to whether or not they're a spouse, domestic partner, or significant other with whom they have a child with. This will then start to add in the additional questions or start to customize the form based on the user input. And so if you select yes, we'll start to ask the same questions we asked for adult 1 for adult 2. If you select no, you'll be able to skip all those answers and all those details. And this affects that income and that household income calculation question that was a part of the eligibility, all determined based on the household size. This is how we determine additional adults. And later below in the form, we'll ask about the number of children in the household, and that'll be how you round out what is your household size and how do you calculate that information. For this particular form, we're going to go through the most nuanced version. And so I will collect yes and enter in the activities that pertain to the adult 2 in the household. As we go through, again, we're seeing the same questions asked with the same context and with the same information. Now we're moving to more of the household definition, household income pieces. We're asking how much income do individuals make monthly? And I do want to very significantly stress that we're asking for monthly income. We have already seen individuals put in their yearly income, and we do have flags to then follow up and say, hey, you put in an income that probably represents something that's yearly. Do you need to update this information just to make sure that we're getting as true and accurate details as possible? But I do want to stress that this is the household gross pre-tax monthly income. This would include both the primary adult 1 and adult 2.
Also, I want to chime in here real quick. When it comes to the income, that's going to be one of the verification criteria. And so whatever is put in here will have to be verified down the road if they are selected to apply for the subsidy. And so that knowledge, I think, is important, that it's not just, this isn't the only part of verification. There will be documentation that will be required to support this down the road if selected to apply.
Absolutely. And that'll go through our next step, our stage 2 verification process, so that we can make sure everyone that we're serving meets the actual eligibility, so that we can spread as much of the funds to individuals as possible. As we go from income and household structure, we start to finish it and round it off with the number of children that are in the household. And we understand that there may be children who don't need childcare. And so we want to tailor the questions to all the individuals that have context for them. And so we ask how many children are in the household. And then we ask how many children actually need childcare. You can go all the way through 10. If you find yourself in a situation in which you need additional spaces, please reach out, and we can always modify this. For the interest of time, I'm only going to select one. But what you'll see, if you select any number more than one, all the information will be exactly the same. It'll ask about the details for child 2, 3, 4, all the way through the number you're going to select. But as we go through, this is also where we start to look at age range and trying to make sure that it falls into the eligible criteria. And so you can select any of the age, any of the dates, you can put it in, or you can select from the calendar view. We're asking the same questions, very similar questions as we do for adults, context on whether the child was born in the US. And then we ask about what sort of childcare is needed, so we can better provide and better support and better understand the subsidy amount and details and context for the family. We do have a disclaimer here and notice, because we want to preface with as much context as possible, not only what's happening with the information that people are submitting, but why we're asking this information. This is as we get into more demographic and more contextual pieces that identify the circumstances that individuals are going through, and this does not impact eligibility at any point in time. And so we want to make sure that people know that up front, that you can understand more of the process, and that you as providers and individuals helping applicants navigate the process have as much context as possible. These are circumstantial, these are situational questions. We want to provide as much trust and assuredness in the ways in which we're using this information as we go through the eligibility form. We start off with asking whether or not a child that needs childcare, that's a part of the household, has any developmental delays, disability, or complex medical needs. These are all single choice answers. We then move on to ask if a child has been asked to leave a childcare setting by a provider. And we know that there's a lot of sensitivity, there's a lot of nuance, and there's a lot of context. We're asking families to answer very, very difficult questions about the nature of their family. And so again, we do want to stress that this does not impact eligibility, but it does better help us understand who we're serving, how we're navigating situations and circumstances, and how we're better addressing equity, need, and how to better serve families across all of the different circumstances and family situations they may be going through. Again, this provides kind of the under context of the next question on whether or not anyone in the household was a survivor of violence or violent crime. And then as we round out the form, those are the contextual questions, circumstantial questions about the family. We start to get more into programmatic questions on if there are any other subsidies the families are already currently receiving. This one better helps us understand what partnerships already exist, what funding mechanisms already exist, what sort of referrals we can make, and how to better direct families to the resources that they need when they need them in context. And so these are multiple select. This will trigger different communications, different notifications, or even potentially different referrals if we see good alignment and good fit for particular programs. And so here we have a bunch of these subsidy programs that are known to us, that are public, that are wide reaching. If you know of other ones, please, please, please reach out, let us know so we can make sure that our list is always up to date and accurate. As community organizations and partners and individuals who may be assisting other folks who are going through the form or part of the process, this question is probably pertinent to you. We ask if someone helped you complete this form. If no, nothing happens. If yes, we will ask additional information on who helped you complete this form. Were they a part of an organization? These questions are definitely optional and so don't have to be filled out, but I do want to bring attention to this last question about additional notes. You're working with the families. You're working with individuals who are navigating this process. And so you're getting much richer, much deeper context and relationship information about what if individual family may be going through. And so we have this last box for you or anyone to go through and add additional context to what may be going on with the family, additional needs, additional things that are not addressed in this form. And so this is an open space to talk about applicant circumstance that we'll review in depth to better understand how we're supporting individuals, what sort of support or needs surround a particular family situation or circumstance, and anything in below. And so if you do want to add additional case notes, comments, details, of course, these are confidential. This is the space to then add that so we have additional context around the family that you're supporting or your particular family indeed. As we go through, the name of the game is support and making sure that we have diversified mechanisms to help guide people through the different parts of the process now, but also as we go through to step 2, 3, and 4, all the way through enrollment. And so if selected for the subsidy, would you like additional application assistance as you go through? And so you can select yes, and this will automatically route to the family access and support team as we go through for individuals who are selected from the eligibility form to move forward into the next phase of the program. Then, similar to the beginning, it's a certification of acknowledgements of details that a lot of this information will go through verification for families that are selected, and 2, that all this information is accurate to the best of your knowledge and ability. We don't want to penalize, but we want to set clear expectations that this program is designed to support as many families as possible, as many children as possible in King County. And so this brings us to the end of the eligibility form. As you submit, you'll get a notification that just tells you a little bit more about timeline and context that you should hear by the end of September. And then you'll also get a text message and email with additional information and next steps, how to reach out for support, if you have any questions, anything in between. And that is the eligibility form. And so with that, I will wrap up and summarize a few key points. The first being that filling out the eligibility form does not guarantee admittance into the program or next stage of the process. And we just want to be super clear on setting expectations so that we're not getting hopes up. We went through this form in about 15 minutes as we're going through each of the questions. The program and the form is designed to be completed in about 5 minutes. We're not trying to ask any questions that take additional time, and that next parts of the process for those who are selected will be additional verification for things like residency, things like income, things like employment, all those different details to make sure that we're able to connect all of the eligibility to documentation or details for families that have access to it. And with that, if there at any point in time, if there's support, please always reach out to our team, the FAS team, the BSK Child Care Subsidy team. And with that, we will go through and open for questions or comments or last thoughts from Adam and Katie before we dive into just general questions. I do see a question in the chat. If we have families in mind, do we provide the links as of today, or when can they start filling out the form? Yes, absolutely. And we will put the links to the application form in the chat and the link to the website as well. Families can start filling out the form today. You can start assisting families today. It's available in English, Somali, and Spanish, with more languages to come over the next few weeks. And your question in terms of languages, hopefully Chinese will be there in mind. Yes, absolutely. We'll have both simplified and traditional Chinese. These languages will also be available through customer support channels. And so if you call through, if you're looking at outreach materials, and if you're looking at the form, both the eligibility and the full verification for families who are invited to apply.
The question about colors from Wit Nakamura, excuse me if I mispronounced the name. The colors are just randomized colors. There's no importance to the colors for the sections, for selections. In unincorporated King County, Katie, can you address unincorporated King County, please?
Yeah, people who live in unincorporated King County are absolutely eligible. They again, they can check with the map that's included on the website. I also dropped a link in the chat that allows them to enter their address into who is my King County council member. And if their address returns a county council member, then they live in King County and they're eligible, if residence wise.
And then the final question on the additional notes section of the form and helping filling that out. And does that influence eligibility in any way? Adam already typed in the chat, 100%. It does not in any way, shape, or form influence eligibility. What it does is help give additional context and provide insight to the family access and support team who are managing cases, interactions, or navigating families. And so it's a space to provide additional context so we understand how better we can serve families as they go through and navigate the child care subsidy.
So I'm gonna make a suggestion that if folks are content with the answers to their questions, we don't have more information to give out right now other than answering questions. And so if you were somebody who's a little bit shy and you want to wait to ask a question until there are fewer people, as people leave, Katie, David, and I will remain behind to make sure we're here to answer any questions for folks who might want specialized time.
Oh, there's a question. When did the eligibility form go live? I believe that was Tuesday evening is when the blog post and the first announcement of the form went live. And we will be looking at eligibility on a rolling and sliding scale. And so no selection processes have been made to this point. And so individuals who are applying still have equal and fair chance to go through to the next phase of the process.
And we haven't spoken to it much, but if we contemplate having an abundance of interest, and so we will go to some form of a lottery, and so there's no advantage to filling it out earlier versus later. When we're moving and shifting towards the cut date for the lottery, that will be communicated on the website, and we will send information out through the BSK channels.
Just to kind of provide some additional information for that, we don't anticipate that cut date will be until the later part of September. So if you could encourage families who you know are interested to fill it out as soon as they can, they will have another likely about 4 weeks before we would cut it off for a lottery if we had significantly more people than we could serve. If we don't have significantly more people than we can serve, or we have less than the number we can serve, that eligibility form, it will become sort of a rolling admissions at that point.
I'm going to give it just a few more minutes, but as we wrap up, I do want to let everyone know that there will be another info session next week, next Wednesday, the 31st at 1 p.m. And so if you have people that can't attend this one, that want to attend the live session, they'll be able to drop in next week, next Wednesday, but we'll also be sending out this information to registrants so you have a copy of the video and the slide deck.
Whit, to your question, and David and Adam, can we keep track of the folks who have registered for these, and we can let you know when that date is? If it is communicated, we will let anyone who registered for these know when it's been communicated, but it will also be advertised on the website.
Yep, absolutely. For everyone that registered, we'll send a follow-up information that has links to all the information, links to the forms, and links to the outreach material. And then we'll have we'll put you on a listserv so that we can follow up and send you updates. And then if you opt out, we hope that you opt back in the future, but we're excited that you're a part of this process.
And for those that are still here, something that sometimes happens in digital spaces is folks have left their computer and they just leave it on. And so if you are contented, or if you don't have any other questions to ask, we're going to ask that you log out now, and those who stay behind will try to address more directly or more intimately in this session. Amy, Kaisha, or Roberta, excuse mispronunciations if they happened. Do you have any questions for us?
Hi there. Not now. Yeah, this was this fit the bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
All right. Seems like we can probably wrap up.
Awesome. Thank you so much for attending.
Nice job. I thought that was great.
Awesome. Oh,
I feel like whenever I speak, you're like my guardian angel that cleans up all the mishaps that I say, Katie. So
Oh.
I want
We're a
to
good
say
team.
thank you and I'm sorry, because I like
No.
say and I say